All right, so there's only three things guaranteed in life: death, taxes, and roadblocks. You got plenty of roadblocks ahead with the parenting plan. As I said earlier, think of this as a 50-year negotiation session because if you are 25, 26 years old, you got young kids, that ex-partner, you don't like them, they are going to be around for the next 50 years or so if you both live a long healthy life, and you don't want to be taking shifts at the weddings that are coming up. You don't want to be taking shifts at the graduations and the births and the funerals, unfortunately. So we got to get this stuff figured out. You don't have to be the best friend, but you got to have kind of a working relationship as best as we can. So let me bring up our roadblock section for today. And this is what we got here, guys. So let's go back to the world of fiction and Lloyd in Dumb and Dumber, Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is trying to get a date with Lauren Holly, and she's having none of it. Lloyd asks her out, and she says, "You know what? There's probably about a 1 in a million chance that you and I are going to go out on a date." And Lloyd says, "You're saying there's a chance," and that's all he can hope for sometimes. Is you're going to hit the roadblock. You can pack it up and go home, or we can try to get curious and get creative and try to find a way through this. So let's go to first slide here. We got to keep in mind communication sucks. We always think it's not us, it is always them. But believe it or not, we all have to work on communication because we just say things that come across differently to the other party. Uh, we're abrupt. We don't mean anything by it, and they just take it the wrong way. So we have to be very careful with how we communicate, and that's words, tone, and body language. But we know we're going to hit some roadblocks, and that's why we're going to talk this through today. So, workplace, Gallup did a poll, and 7% of the people said that workplace communication is good. That seems high to me. If you've gone to work for any amount of time, it's just not good. There's too much going on, and things get mucked up all the time. So, keep that stat in mind. Divorce, of course, communication is not so good between the partners. They did a poll, and 70% of the moms, 60% of the dads said communication not so good. We know communication is not good. Let's not make it worse by disrespecting the other side and being intentional with trying to make their day go badly, make them feel bad about themselves. You do that, and there's always going to be payback down the road. It could be next week, it could be 20 years down the road, but you make somebody feel bad, disrespect them, diminish them, it will come back on you at some point. When you need grace and you need a favor, probably not going to get it. So, the parenting plan, why do we get to impasse? Why do things not go according to plan? It's because we lose that feeling of autonomy. We want to have agency over ourselves, being able to call the shots on our life and our kids' life. Unmet interests. Charlie Munger used to say, "Show me the incentive, and I'll show you the outcome." Keep incentive in mind. Interest-based negotiations is what we're after because everybody is trying to track and follow their own incentives in their life. If you get a chance, read William Urey's book, Getting Past Noon. This has some really good advice on trying to put together a framework for getting past roadblocks. It's probably a couple hundred pages, easy read, and I've probably read it a few times and I pick up something new every time I go back to it. So keep this in mind, guys. You got a couple options here with the kids. You are going to have roadblocks. You got two people with different opinions. Mom and dad, whatever the partners are, you have a choice. You can figure this stuff out on your own, negotiate the best you can. The other option, not ideal, is you take it to court and let the judge figure it out. You don't know the judge, and the judge does not know you. They hear cases all day long. And again, this is not legal advice, not even close, but you can pretty much guarantee if you go to court on a family law issue involving the kids, the judge is not going to be happy to see you there. You're spending time and money. That's money that could be going to the graduation, to the the college fund. It's money that could be going to nutritious food, to a math tutor, and you and your ex-partner are fighting it out in court, spending thousands of dollars, spending a bunch of time. Keep that Baldwin Basinger case in mind. 8 year custody battle, 3 million bucks on legal fees. The judge is not going to be too happy to see you, and they will not be too willing to do you a lot of favors. They hear a lot of cases. So just think that through, have those conversations with the ex. We can figure it out ourselves, or we can go roll the dice at court. And I would try as best as possible. Some situations are not salvageable, but the best you can, try to get to an agreement that you both can get some buy-in with and have durability down the road rather than having a stranger make that decision for you. So let's look at some common roadblocks, and I have reversed the traffic lights here. We're going red to green. You cannot get to a full agreement sometimes, and in that case, we want to try to get to a partial agreement to build up positive momentum. So you have three sections of the parenting plan. It's going to be the residential schedule, where the kids are at, the major decision making, healthcare, education, things like that, and the dispute resolution. So three different sections. If you can only get to agreement on one of these, at least that builds positive momentum. One idea to keep in mind is usually the least amount of conflict can come up with the dispute resolution. So you might decide to just go to mediation if when a dispute comes up. You also, clients kind of forget you do have some flexibility on this. Let's say you both belong to a certain religion, and you think, well, if we get into a dispute, let's have this mediated by somebody from the church. You do have some flexibility on these kind of issues if you both agree to it. So this area does have some flexibility, and you don't have to go to mediation. You don't have to go to arbitration. You can sit down and discuss with the ex. We disagree on something, let's go to somebody we trust. So that is an option. And if you start the negotiations on the dispute resolution, hammer out an agreement on that, and that can help you build up some positive momentum for the areas that might be complicated, like the after-school activities and the money and the time that goes into that. So you can't get to a full agreement, go to a partial agreement, build momentum. How about we can't get to a binding agreement? That sounds final and it's scary and it sounds permanent and you're not going to be able to change it down the road. And so you just balk, you don't want to agree to anything because it's scary. That's completely understandable if you're not familiar with the courts and you're not familiar with family law. So what you can try to do is get to a trial run. Just try something out on a temporary basis. The parents are always kind of at odds with, cell phone usage and the social media and how much time during the day and the kids going back and forth between the households. You want to have things kind of consistent between the two households. Can't get to a binding agreement, not a problem. Let's do a trial run. And that can be kind of a pressure valve, so you're not feeling like you're locked into something forevermore. So when these issues come up, cell phone at school, yes or no, smartphone or a brick phone, social media, try a trial run. And depending on what the issue is, it could be for a week, it could be for a few months, depending on how, serious the issue is. So just keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be a binding agreement. Get to a trial run and experiment a little bit. My way or nothing, that's not always a good way to start because you have two people at the table and there's no solutions, only trade-offs, as Thomas Sowell likes to say. You got to have some flexibility because both sides have thoughts and opinions and ideas. So if you can't get your way, let's try some A/B testing. Put your concept for parenting to the test. If you're so confident it's the best way to go, then put it to a test. And we call this A/B testing. We'll try A out for a couple months, then we'll try B out and see how it goes. And the kids are different too. I mean, some kids respond really well to the helicopter parents, and then some kids might respond really well to kind of the free range style of let the kids get out there and play and see how it goes. So no two kids are alike and no two families are alike. So if you think you're going to do my way or nothing and you're getting some pushback, come up with a plan with your ex-partner for some A/B testing. We are going to try the Tiger Mom approach for a couple months and see how that goes. We'll keep tabs. Then we will both try more of the free range approach for a couple months after that. We'll come back in good faith and just kind of compare notes and see what little Sally responds best to. Because again, this is not about mom. It is not about dad. You go to the court and talk to the judge, they will make sure you know about that. This is about the best interests of the kid. So put the ego aside, try out your way, try out the ex-spouse's way, come back and meet and see which one works best for the kids. Sometimes you can't agree on nothing. That does happen, and we call that a first order failed agreement. That's where we cannot agree on anything. So the first order is a substance. It fails. Nothing's happening, just roadblocks across the board. So let's try to do what we call a second order agreement, and that's when we sit down. Okay, we don't agree on anything. Let's put together a list of all the things we disagree on and why we disagree on that. And what does that do? Gives us the positions, and most importantly, it lets us go focus on the interests behind those positions because the interests are the core values. So a good example on this might be church versus no church. Let's say parent one is very religious and parent two is either agnostic or atheist and they want kind of nothing to do with religion. So now we got a conflict here, and this one is very close to home for the parents, and it's very emotional and it can be a very difficult situation when one really supports religion and one does not. Now, this stuff does happen because it's kind of a cute, fun story when they're in college and one is really religious and the partner is atheist, and it's kind of a fun story at the parties. But once you get married and then you get divorced and you got to figure out how to handle faith, that's when it becomes a conflict. So these are some interests down here at the bottom for little Sally to keep in mind. We don't even have to have a conversation about religion when it comes to church if we're thinking about interest-based negotiations. So one parent wants religion, one does not. Here's what we can agree on down below. We want little Sally to develop social skills. We want little Sally to learn how to bring something into the tribe. You get some of these kids, and all they do is take, all they do is eat. They take from their family, they take from their friends, they take from their coworkers at work, and they end up burning themselves out. And the tribe says, you're gone. All you do is take, all you do is eat, you are gone. You bring nothing to the tribe. So being part of a religion, outside of the religious aspect, you can learn to bring something into the tribe. Little Sally goes to the church picnic. She makes casserole. She makes some cookies. She brings it in, and she kind of figures that out. Hey, I'm learning some social skills. I'm learning how to be part of a tribe with a give and take. That, again, those two skills alone have nothing to do with religion itself. So the parent who's not real thrilled with Sunday school and religion, think of these interest-based skills and the benefits the kid can get at church. And then critical thinking. This one's important for both sides. You want to encourage little Sally to ask tough questions to both the religious parent and the non-religious parent. So keep that kind of communication open, and both parents should be able to agree with that. So church is a tough one. People really dig into that one, and it can be challenging. Go to the interest-based negotiations, social skills, making some friends, being a good tribe member, and critical thinking. If you put it in that perspective, that helps lessen the conflict on the religious discussion. So let's do the framework for the roadblocks. These are four to keep in mind and the benefits. If you get to a partial agreement, that is positive momentum. A temporary agreement, that works as a pressure valve. You're not locked into something for the next 50 years. A/B testing, try out A approach for a while, try out B approach for a while, come back and see what works. That shows respect for the other side. And then second order, think of religion, can't agree on anything. We can go to the why and the interest-based negotiations and try to stay focused on that instead of the positions. So that's what we've done so far. We've heard from Marcus Aurelius on focusing on influences and controllables. We've heard from Mark Twain on doom scrolling in the early 1910s. Doom scrolling is not new; it's been around for a while. We heard from Thomas Sowell, professor at Stanford, and he talked about being aware of trade-offs. When you're in negotiations, two parties, no solutions, only trade-offs. Then we heard from Jeff Spicoli, gentleman scholar. and he talked about asking those closed-end questions on the double sausage cheese pizza. If you are having a negotiation and the person on the other side of the table has options, maybe some leverage, you want to start off the conversation asking open-end, interest-based questions to them. Then we heard from Maya Angelou, and she talked about the importance of being respectful to the other side. They will remember how you made them feel. And Maya Angelou would know, African American woman in the 1900s, so she probably experienced a lot of bad stuff, and people will remember how you made them feel. And there will be payback down the road, so you can pay it forward or get some payback down the road. Keep that one in mind. And then we heard from Lloyd in Dumb and Dumber. Roadblocks are inevitable. Death, taxes, roadblocks. So we got to keep in mind the need to be curious and creative. So that's what we covered. We're going to finish up with the wrap up that is coming up next. And we will hear from Albert Einstein, also a pretty smart guy. And that's coming up next.